USVI News, your Virgin Islands connection.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for USVI News. I'm Emily Matson. Governors from the U.S. territories, including the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, were in Washington, D.C. this week, giving Congress an update on our economic and domestic status recovering from the pandemic and natural disasters. And as our USVI News Washington, D.C. correspondent Rachel Knapp reports, the governors also pushed for equal treatment for the territories.
The territories make valuable contributions to our nation. I want to recognize that each territory is an integral part of the United States.
In a hearing with U.S. senators, governors from each territory outlined their progress in bouncing back from natural disasters and the pandemic.
Our government's debt restructuring has been approved. The rebuilding from the devastation caused by the hurricanes and the earthquakes is underway. 2022 will be a key year in our reconstruction with thousands of rebuilding projects for schools, housing, roads and bridges.
With the help of Congress and this committee, we have endured the worst of the pandemic. And our tourism sector, nearly 1/3 of our economy, is thriving again. Our revenues are up and our debt burden is down.
But the governors did not hold back on the issues they're facing. They told senators that even though they're U.S. citizens, the territories are not given the same equal treatment from Congress nor the federal government.
For too long, the Americans living in the insular areas have been treated as foreign or other, as something less than American citizens of the soil. To cite a few examples, a disabled American who lives in a state entitled to receive SSI. If she moves to the Virgin Islands, she loses it. Medicaid funding to the territory has for decades systematically lagged behind funding for the poorest states. And under the tax laws, investment made by U.S. investors in the Virgin Islands are treated as investments in a foreign country.
Governors say the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan beefed up funding and expanded Medicaid, which brought relief to the territories. But it's only temporary. They're demanding the same benefits as citizens on the mainland.
There is no question that Congress has the authority, and I would argue the moral obligation, to treat all Americans the same. Citizenship is not geographic.
And while the governor from Puerto Rico was at the Capitol, he made another pitch for statehood.
Puerto Rico will remain hindered until our century-long status question is resolved. The people of Puerto Rico voted and chose permanent union with the United States through statehood as their path forward.
And all the governors pushed for equality and funding benefits and programs for the territories. At the Capitol, Rachel Knapp reporting for USVI News.
As we reported, President Biden met with leaders in New York City to discuss the wave of gun violence plaguing America's cities. Illegal guns are a big part of the problem, especially ghost guns that can be easily purchased with no background checks. Reporter Jeff Paguse has more from the top federal official in charge of getting those guns off our streets.
Dion, it's Houston Police. Let's do this. God.
If you're looking for a reason why crime is spiking,
Keep hands so I can see him.
what are you doing? The ATF says unregistered and untraceable homemade weapons are key. So-called ghost guns can be made on a 3D printer. This is a ghost gun. We're going to try it out. It's something that you can produce on a printer that costs less than $200. Earl Griffith, an ATF firearms officer, says a small conversion device like this one can turn a legal semi-automatic handgun into an illegal machine gun. How many rounds a minute was that?
So that was about 30 rounds.
30 rounds.
Yes.
So you essentially emptied the clip.
Emptied the magazine of 33 rounds. Yeah.
Conversion parts are so easy to make that we watched as this 3D printer assembled one in about 45 minutes. Marvin Richardson is the acting director of the ATF. How have ghost guns complicated the job of ATF agents?
You can buy a box of firearms parts and you can assemble those firearms together and I've seen videos on YouTube where you can see people doing it in record time, 20, 23 minutes.
Last year, police in Chicago seized over 400 ghost guns. New York, over 200. Richardson says so-called trigger pullers, criminals, and gang members using guns are well known to law enforcement.
So what we've learned is that those people that we go after have an average of 8 arrests prior to us having that contact with them.
8 arrests.
And in many instances, 8 violent criminal arrests.
Another part of the problem, the court system. A lot of it closed down at times during the pandemic. Law enforcement officials say they make an arrest. The suspect goes into the court system, but then comes right back out.
Continuing with a positive trend here in the territory, active COVID-19 case counts continue to remain steady and trend downward. According to the latest numbers from the Virgin Islands Department of Health, there are 381 active COVID cases territory-wide, with 243 COVID cases on St. Croix, 116 on St. Thomas, and 22 on St. John. The U.S. is now averaging more than 385,000 new COVID-19 cases daily. It's a drop of 37% since last week. And that has some health experts rethinking the benchmark used to measure the state of COVID-19. Here's a look at why federal health officials are not ready to ease restrictions despite the optimistic numbers right now.
There are growing signs that the U.S. could be ready to ease COVID-19 restrictions and start moving back toward normal.
I can't tell you exactly when, but there are more and more positive indicators each day that tell us we are making progress to that final goal.
The average number of new daily cases is down 37% since last week and is trending down in all but one state, Alabama. And as the Omicron variant appears to be receding, some health experts are asking whether it's time to roll back some COVID-19 restrictions and end mask mandates. On Wednesday, the White House declined to say when the administration would offer a clear plan to transition out of the pandemic, with the CDC director saying she's cautiously optimistic.
We really do have to look to our hospitalization rates and our death rates to look to when is time to lift some of these mitigation efforts. We will continue to reevaluate, and we know people are anxious.